The snow falls heavy on the mountain pass. The wind screams through the valley. Inside a stone farmhouse, a mother counts her children by the firelight. 1, 2, 3, 4, all home, all accounted for. She bolts the door. Outside, something moves. It walks on 2 legs but stands taller than any man. Its hands are long. Its breath clouds the frozen air. It listens at the door. It waits. It knows which children obeyed today and which ones did not. It knows who worked and who refused. It knows who will survive the winter and who has already failed. Her name is Gryla, and Christmas is her hunting season. We think of Christmas as a time of warmth, lights strung across rooftops, hot chocolate, gifts wrapped in bright paper, safety, comfort, joy. But Christmas did not always mean those things. In Iceland, for hundreds of years, Christmas marked the darkest part of winter. The sun barely rose. The cold could kill in minutes. Food ran low. Families huddled together in turf houses, waiting for spring, hoping they had done enough to survive. And in those long nights, parents told their children about Gryla, a creature from the mountains, a monster who descended when the snow fell deep. She came for the disobedient, the lazy, the children who refused to work. They also told them about the Yule Cat, an enormous beast that prowled the countryside on Christmas Eve, searching for anyone who had not earned new clothes through their labor. These were not bedtime stories meant to entertain. They were warnings, survival instructions wrapped in fear. This is the story of Gryla and the Yule Cat, not the version softened for tourists or theme parks. The real one. The one Icelandic children heard in the dark. The one that kept them alive. First, the story itself. Then, the truth behind it. Gryla lived in the mountains. She had always been there. Long before the first settlers arrived. Long before Christianity reached the island. She was old. Older than memory. She was enormous. Taller than the tallest man. Her hands ended in claws. Her face was twisted and cruel. Some said she had hooves. Others said she had a tail that dragged behind her in the snow. No one agreed on exactly what she looked like, but everyone agreed on what she did. She came down from the mountains in winter. She came for children. Not all children, only the ones who misbehaved, the ones who talked back, the ones who refused to do their chores, the ones who wasted food or wandered too far from home or disobeyed their parents. Gryla could smell disobedience. She could taste laziness on the wind. She carried a sack. A massive, filthy sack slung over her shoulder. When she found a child who had failed, she grabbed them. She stuffed them inside. She carried them back to her cave. And there, in the darkness, she cooked them. She boiled them in a great iron pot. She made stew from their bones. She ate them slowly, savoring every bite. She saved nothing. She wasted nothing. Every piece of the child became part of her meal. Parents did not need to explain the lesson. Children understood. Obey. Work. Stay close, or Gryla will come. The threat was not abstract. It was not a metaphor. In the minds of Icelandic children, Gryla was real. She was waiting. She was watching. And winter was her season. But Gryla did not hunt alone. The Yule Cat was just as terrible, just as hungry. It was not a normal cat. It was massive. Some said it stood as tall as a house. Its eyes glowed in the dark. Its claws could tear through wood and stone. It moved silently through the snow, stalking farms and villages on Christmas Eve. But the Yule Cat did not hunt the disobedient. It hunted the unproductive. In Iceland, wool was survival. Sheep provided warmth, clothing, blankets. Every member of the family had to contribute. Children carded wool. They spun it into thread. They helped weave it into fabric. The work was long. It was tedious. It was essential. At the end of the year, families gave out new clothes, a new sweater, a new pair of socks, a new hat, not as a gift, as proof. Proof that you had worked, proof that you had earned your place, proof that you had contributed to the family's survival. If you received new clothes, you were safe. If you did not, the Yule Cat would come for you. It prowled the countryside on Christmas Eve, peering into windows. It could see who wore new garments and who did not. It could tell who had worked and who had been lazy. And when it found someone wearing old clothes, someone who had not earned their wool, it pounced. Some said it devoured them on the spot. Others said it dragged them into the snow and left nothing behind but bones. Either way, the message was clear: work or die. Children understood this too. They carded wool until their fingers ached. They spun thread by candlelight. They did not complain. They did not refuse. Christmas Eve was coming, and the Yule Cat was waiting. Gryla punished disobedience. The Yule Cat punished laziness. Together, they formed a complete system, a structure of fear that kept children in line, that kept families working, that kept everyone alive. Because in Iceland, survival was not guaranteed. It was earned. Now we step out of the story. Now we ask the question: why did Iceland need monsters? The answer is simple. Iceland was trying to kill you. For most of its history, Iceland was one of the harsh places humans ever tried to live. It sits just below the Arctic Circle. Winters last for months. The sun barely rises. Temperatures plunge. Storms arrive without warning and bury entire farms in snow. There are no trees, no large animals to hunt, no way to escape once winter sets in. Ships could not sail. Roads did not exist. If you ran out of food in January, you starved in February. Famine was common. In the 1780s, a volcanic eruption killed a quarter of the population. Not from the eruption itself, from the famine that followed. Livestock died. Crops failed. Families ate moss and seaweed and whatever they could scrape from the frozen ground. Children were not passengers in this struggle. They were workers. Essential workers. A child who refused to gather driftwood could cost the family heat. A child who wasted food could mean someone else went hungry. A child who wandered away from the farm could freeze to death in minutes. Mistakes were not just bad behavior, they were deadly. So parents needed their children to obey. Not someday, not when they felt like it. Right now, every time, without question. But how do you make a 5-year-old understand that walking too far from the house could mean death? How do you explain frostbite to someone who has never seen it? How do you teach a child
that wasting food is not just rude, it is survival. You cannot, not with logic, not with explanations. So you give them Gryla. You make winter into a monster. You make disobedience into a death sentence. You make the consequences immediate and terrifying. You make fear do the teaching that reason cannot. Gryla was not cruelty. She was clarity. She was the embodiment of every real danger winter posed, compressed into a single figure that children could understand. And the Yule Cat did the same thing for labor. Gryla enforced behavior. The Yule Cat enforced work. Together, they kept Icelandic children alive. Parents could have tried to explain. They could have sat their children down and said, "You must gather driftwood because we need fuel to survive the winter." But children do not think about survival. They think about play. They think about warmth. They think about right now. Fear works faster than reason. It works deeper. It does not require understanding. It only requires belief. If you believe Grýla is real, you obey. If you believe the Yule Cat is watching, you work. You do not need to understand why. You do not need to see the long-term logic. You just need to be afraid. And in Iceland, that fear kept families together. It kept children close to home. It kept them working. It kept them from making the small mistakes that added up to death. Grýla was not a villain. She was a tool, a way of translating abstract danger into something concrete, something children could picture, something they would remember every time they thought about disobeying. The Yule Cat did the same thing. It turned the invisible value of labor into a visible threat. It made the connection between work and survival impossible to ignore. You work, you get new clothes, you survive. You refuse, the cat comes, you die. It was brutal. It was effective. And for hundreds of years, it worked. This story had been told long before Christianity and Santa came to town. So, how did it survive? And most importantly, how was it influenced by Christianity? Iceland converted to Christianity in the year 1000, officially at least. The old beliefs did not vanish. They adapted, and they lived on in different forms. Gryla was too useful to abandon, too deeply embedded in the culture. She was not erased. She was absorbed into the new world. The church allowed her to exist, but only within limits. She became part of Christmas, a seasonal figure instead of a year-round threat. Her story was softened in some tellings, expanded in others. The Yule lads appeared, 13 sons of Gryla, each arriving on a different night before Christmas. They were tricksters, pranksters. Some stole food, some slammed doors, some licked spoons. They were annoying, not deadly. The Yule lads gave Gryla a family. They gave her a husband, Lepaludi, a lazy oaf who rarely left the cave. They made her story more complex, more domesticated. But Gryla herself remained. The core of her stayed intact. She still hunted. She still ate disobedient children. She still came in winter. Christianity did not kill Icelandic folklore. It absorbed it, reshaped it, and made room for it within the new calendar. Gryla survived because she was necessary, because Iceland still needed her. The Yule Cat survived too. Even as Iceland modernized, even as survival became less desperate, the story remained. Parents still told it. Children still believed it. The threat still worked. Folklore does not disappear when the world changes. It adapts. It finds new forms, new meanings. But the core stays the same. Fear is useful, and useful things endure. Today, Gryla is everywhere in Iceland. She appears on Christmas decorations, in children's books, and on television specials. Tourists buy plush toys of her, and families tell her story with affection instead of terror. The Yule Cat has softened too. It is still a reminder to work hard, but the stakes are lower. No one truly believes it will eat them. The threat has become symbolic. But something remains. Icelanders have not forgotten why Grýla existed. They have not erased the memory of what winter once meant. They have not pretended their folklore was always innocent. They remember that survival required discipline, that children needed to obey, that fear was not cruelty, it was protection. Grýla still lives in the mountains. The Yule Cat still prowls on Christmas Eve, not because Iceland is still desperately poor, not because children will freeze if they disobey, but because stories preserve memory, because folklore carries the weight of survival even after survival is no longer in question. Modern Iceland is warm, secure, prosperous. Children do not need to spin wool to earn their clothes. They do not need to fear starvation if they refuse to work. But Grýla remains, a monument to the past, a reminder of what it cost to live here, a story that honors the fear that kept families alive. Grýla and the Yule Cat are not villains. They are not entertainment. They are not relics of a crueler time that Iceland should be ashamed of. They exist because winter in Iceland once demanded absolute obedience, because survival required every member of the family to work, because children needed to fear the consequences of laziness and disobedience in a way that logic could not teach. Fear was not cruelty. It was clarity. And the stories endure because they carry that truth forward. Because they remind modern Icelanders what their ancestors endured. Because they preserve the memory of a time when Christmas did not mean comfort. It meant survival. And survival was earned. The snow still falls on the mountain pass. The wind still screams through the valley. But now, when a mother counts her children by the fire, she does not fear Grýla. She tells them about her instead. And the children listen. Because some stories are too important to forget, even the terrifying ones. Especially the terrifying ones.